And I want you to meet somebody named Anurag. Okay? Anurag was actually a Teach for India fellow. So he taught for 2 years in a low-income private school in Delhi. And about a year into his teaching experience, Anurag came to school and he planned a whole lesson where he really wanted to introduce his kids to the Asar report. And he wanted to basically teach his kids about the inequity in education that exists across India. And so he brings this Asar report into his school and he starts showing his kids the statistics. And the kids start asking, they say, Anurag, this isn't, where is this data coming from? And he said, well, it's coming mostly from rural India. And so his kids said, well, don't you have data from our community? And Anurag kind of looked at me and said, actually, the truth is that I don't. And so his kids shot back and they said, but you're showing us data from India and you're expecting us to basically try to talk about our community, but you don't actually know what the data is in our community. And Anurag paused and he said, you're right, actually, I don't know what the condition is in our community here in Delhi. And so he actually turned that around into a challenge for his kids. And he said, well, what if we were actually to go out and collect that data right here in our community? And so his kids basically spent the next several weeks learning what they needed to do to figure out how to actually become proper researchers. And so they learned all about survey methodology. They learned all about what it means to collect data. They studied the methodology that Pratham and the Asar report uses. They studied the methodology that other organizations use. And these were 6th standard kids. And after a few weeks of studying and basically immersing themselves in the methodology, they eventually went out and they started surveying all the kids that they could find from the community. And they started using the same Asar assessment where they were testing mathematics and literacy. And they started collecting all of that data. And after a few weeks, they had gathered data from several hundred kids in the community. And they came back and they compiled all that data. And what they found was that the data was actually no better than what the Asar report found. And so as you can imagine, his kids got really angry and they said, we need to figure out how to do something about this. And so his kids over the next several weeks ended up figuring out how to start forming everything from tutoring camps to one-on-one mentorship with other kids to after-school classes where you actually had kids teaching kids from the community how to read, how to form mathematics, how to get better at academics. And I mentioned this story as a closing story because when I think about the type of education we need to be giving our kids, I think this is it for me. I think it's the kind of education that empowers our kids to better understand their communities, but the type of education that empowers our kids how to figure out how to do something about what they see, how to solve the problems that they come across.